post-colonialist scholars, particularly Spivak, Gayatri Spivak. So in so doing here, I'll be talking about this brief history of Western knowledge and knowing, and then how it spread throughout the world as hegemonic practices, including Nepal and elsewhere in the world, and then how marginalized or ignored our own indigenous knowledge or traditional knowledge, or what can we say, local knowledge and knowing practices. So then I argue here, how can we promote this justice, synergy between two thoughts, to Western thoughts, Western educating, and our own Eastern ways of knowing and educating practices, particularly focusing on pedagogical practices in educational. Uh, Let me first muted भएको sir, you are muted.
I made it, sir. मैले
Okay.
आफैले म्युट गरेको छु.
Okay. Okay, then let me first share the very brief history of knowledge and knowing in the Western world, particularly in European world. So when we talk about the knowledge and knowing in the Western world, we need to go back to the Aristotelian thought. And first, Aristotle came with the idea of syllogism. And syllogism is the concept of reasoning, logical reasoning. So what Aristotle believed on truth can be achieved through logical reasoning processes, that may be inductive or deductive processes. And also he believed on synthesis of this faith and reason. Then we can achieve knowledge and truths or facts, what we say. So then this idea of Aristotle influenced actually René Descartes in later 15th or early 16th century. And then René Descartes came out with particular ideas that mind and matter are separate entities. And then he believed on the supremacy of reason. And he believed on these empirically proven facts only. And so he said these laws of nature are invariable. That means he talked about the singularity of knowledge. One type of epistemology was developed from the concept of René Descartes, and then Newtonian science evolved. Then that means René Descartes' ideas were laid actually the foundation of Newtonian science. And Newton actually believed on absolute certainty through measurement, absolutism. So absolutism, that was the key notion of Newton, and that emerged through his ideas. That is the kind of indisputable kind of knowledge, or the kind of unquestionable knowledge. So absolute kind of knowledge on which Newton actually believed. And what he said, that this physical world can be explained through cause and effect relationships. And such ideas actually laid again the foundation of scientific modernism. So scientific modernism then began, and massively the scientific knowledge industry started from after the ideas of Newtonian science. And then these body of knowledge actually based on one single epistemology, or one truth epistemology. And then this technologies were developed, and modern science uh, again that supported, that promoted for industrial capitalism in the in particularly in European world. So and also industrial revolution, and this industrial revolution actually caused the exploitation, massive exploitation of natural resources and natural elements. Actually, nature was made a kind of slave. And then in these ways, actually, this Western world gained power. There was different forms of power. For example, this economic power and knowledge power, and accumulating the raw materials from all around the world. And then this body of knowledge, actually what I call here Western knowledge or Western scientific knowledge, or this scientific knowledge expanded throughout the world as a form of discourse. What Michael Foucault also says, this power creates discourse, and discourse as a form of power that expanded throughout the world, spread throughout the world. And then these educational institutions focus not producing newer forms of ideas and practices, rather the already defined knowledge or already established explanations were taught in most of the educational institutions all around the world. And Nepali higher education and schools could not be the exception, actually. And we were heavily influenced from the Western world and Western knowledge and knowing practices. So we imported these ideas of modernism in education and from the West, and in order to promote this modern development, so-called modern development. So then what happened here, the kind of mass education that was actually developed in Europe and America in 18th and 19th century, and that was expanded throughout the world in 20th century. But in the case of Nepal, what we find in different literature, these different commissions were formed after 1950s. So for example, you can say this Nepal National Education Planning Commission of 1956 and other commissions and committees. These commissions and committees actually promoted this Western form of educating practices and knowing practices. So whole education systems were shaped based on the Western ideas and practices. And uh, that was actually expanded in Nepal as a form of mass education, and other international donors and agencies also facilitated for expanding such very structured, rigid, and uniform ways of knowing, particularly in Nepal. And so this was a kind of what we see, a kind of domination of the West, or hegemony of the West. And so by following these structure practices of knowing and educating practices in Nepal, we were actually compelled to reject the body of our traditional knowledge or indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing of diversified communities in Nepal. So, so I use here the terms indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge. Some people say that local knowledge, native knowledge, or some people say that this indigenous technology knowledge, traditional technologies knowledge. But it's difficult to distinguish among these particular type of knowledge. Rather, we focus on, I synonymously actually use these terms here. because our situation is the same, as we cannot distinguish who are indigenous, who are local, and who are non-local, and likewise. So then, now let me then we have been actually practicing this kind of education system here, largely teacher centered. Teacher remains active in most of the time in the process of educating and learning, teaching and learning. So it's more teacher centered. And then you can say that we have a kind of belief that one size fits for all. The kind of it ignores the diversities, and we assume that the one particular procedure methods of teaching fits for all students with different abilities or diversified intelligences. So then, so centrality is another concept of modernism. So what there are assumptions in our context that teacher as the center of knowledge, and always textbooks as center of knowledge, and centrally developed curriculum. So what we believe that school as center of learning. There are no ways, no children can learn the ideas, knowledge, and skills outside of the school. So these are the kind of beliefs that we have in our context. Similarly, uniformity. So assuming that what we assume that all children are alike in their learning abilities. So we assume that all learn in a way. So we ignore, generally, largely, we ignore this diversity. That may be cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, and other diversity in terms of abilities, caste, race, ethnicities, age, and such differences are actually ignored in the classroom situation. So these are the ways how we are practicing. Thus, this is banking nature of education, what Paulo Freire also advocates for this kind of education, critiquing this kind of education. So depositing, meaning the kind of depositing money in the bank. That means copying the knowledge of teacher and pasting in the mind of students. That kind of education, our education is there in our context. We have been practicing. So spoon feeding, just feeding uh, knowledge. Educating means the feeding, spoon feeding, and just feeding and getting degree. And you know that we have a kind of, in school systems, largely we have this strict discipline and with a particular uniform and Western wearing. So these are the cultural practices that we have been adopting from the West. So then this is the rigid setting, classroom setting. They don't have a chance of discussing each other. They just sit and listen to the teachers, and just very boring and the forceful learning. Similarly, we see that passive listening to teacher, and it is assumed that the classroom is the only the space of learning, and students are actually jailed in the classroom, and they are compelled to listen what teacher speaks, what teacher delivers, and they are in strict discipline. So drilling method, read by heart, repetition, and memorization. These are our actually the practices. So rote memorization and textbook-based teaching learning practices. We assume that there are no knowledge in other contexts and other settings. And assessment through testing, and teachers always see the correct answers. So this is the way how they are engaged in assessment practices, and they are facing this anxiety and fear and anxiety from examinations, anxiety from teachers and learning activities. So there are such adversities as well in our educating practices. So the kind of teacher has authoritative role. Teacher has become a director or controller of uh, the learning processes of children. And similarly, what we say in Nepali, this nathi laune shiksha. So what students should move in the direction of teacher, under the control of teacher, all the time, in most of the time, we can say. So this is a kind of very giraffe view, very teachers view the learning processes of students from upward. And then there is less care of individual needs and interest, and we can say expectation of students, just like feeding corn to a group of hens and cocks. This is just feeding. uh, so this kind of very upward kind of looking we have. Just we don't immerse in the learning processes of the students. Just we see from upward, teachers see their learning from upward, just to deliver the content the students, whether they have conceptualized or not, least scared. So then consequences, what we see the consequences here from such modernist practices of teaching learning activities in Nepali context, then there is actually disconnections, what they know, what they have already, the ideas, knowledge and skills they learned at their home culture and community culture. There is disconnection. In school, they learn something different ideas and universal values, modern ideas, scientific knowledge and skills they learn in school. Rather, they have different culture at homes. So less linked. These are practices are less linked in everyday practices of students, and less usable in their life. So very frustrating, very poor learning we can see if you see the results of different examinations, let's say. And so impose learning without passion of the learners, and just to we focus on just to pass the exams through rote memorization, and delivering them limited content. And what John Dewey says, we need to promote this unlimited learning without focusing on these textbooks. Textbooks are simply the means rather than the ends. So we don't focus on such practices, rather we focus on to make them to pass the examinations. So then what are the results we see here? Some students get passed, and but the knowledge and skills they achieved from schools and universities are less usable in their lives. So they failed. Some students failed, and they feel inferior, and some of in many cases they fall under depression, and that promotes their self-esteem, low self-esteem. And we have listened in many cases that many students uh, uh, fell under suicide. So they did suicide as well when they got failed in past examinations. We can remember these incidents. So we can see the result here. These modernist practices are one of the causes. There may be several causes of this kind of achievement of the students. This is actually the latest data you can see from ERO, Education Review Office. From one of the reports, I got this very interesting figure. So you see in mathematics of grade 5, 32% of students are below level 1. Below level 1 means they are unable to read and write numbers, and they cannot do simple operations as well. And about 40% of students there are in basic level. That means they are unable to calculate mathematical problem independently. So you see the figure here, about 72 percentage of primary level students are not uh, uh, they haven't achieved the proficiency level of that particular level. So only you see there 24% have achieved proficient level of competencies. So this is very poor situation we have in Nepal. Similarly, you see in Nepali language subject, then 20% of students they are unable to understand the language. 35% they understand, but they have minimum understanding on language. So they are below average. So very majority of students here also they have not achieved the proficiency of primary level in Nepali language. So we see the scenario here, why this is happening, why should this the state or the government is talking about the promotion of this quality education in Nepal, rather the achievements of the students are gradually falling down. So these modernist practices of discaring individual students may be one of the causes here. So I already shared that this is because of power. So power we see here in this particular presentation is Western power, Western hegemony. So this Western power has controlled our ideas and practices of this mass education and modern schooling practices. And Western world produce knowledge, and they legitimize knowledge, and they define what is knowledge and what is not knowledge. And so the kind of hierarchy between West and the East is already there. So this hierarchy, power differential, let's say, has created the kind of hegemony that has Western power has been perpetuating this injustice and controlling our Eastern ideas and practices, and allowing them to retain their power. We are powerless and powerful. We are practicing this this type of education for the good of others, for their benefits, for their good. So power is at the center of this whole phenomenon. So then Western power, this domination of Western power, knowledge is already there. So there is supremacy of Western knowledge in education that has created injustice, and the knowledge that our children are getting are less usable, and decontextual, and marginalizing, that has been marginalizing our corpus of this indigenous knowledge heritage. So indigenous or traditional knowledge heritage uh, is unused or devalued position actually. So marginalized position. So we need to think all these aspects. So let me then share some ideas of this traditional knowledge, the concepts of traditional knowledge. Then, what is that actually? So this body of knowledge is different from that of scientific knowledge or these Western forms of knowledge. So it's actually the knowledge constructed or created through informal engagement of the community people. So it's a local native views or perspective or ideas, beliefs, and worldviews, what the local people have constructed in their world of living. So similarly, experiential knowledge generated through interaction with the natural world, and it is tested over centuries of use. And it's embedded in community practices, institutions, ritual, and different forms of ceremonies in our diversified culture. So it's diachronic. Diachronic means here it's continuously constructed and reconstructed over the period of time, and it's collective and holistic. So holistic means here uh, the traditional knowledge is holistic. So what we have, the bodies of knowledge, this mathematics, science, sociology, anthropology, these are the fragmented knowledge domains, fragmented knowledge systems. But indigenous knowledge, our traditional knowledge, is more holistic. You can see holistically different ideas there, ideas of mathematics, ideas of language, ideas of science or sociology, you can see in a particular body of knowledge. So it's passed down from generation to generation. It's dynamic and changing over time. So what Bandana Shiva, she is ecofeminist from India. She talks about this indigenous or traditional knowledge. So what she says here, this traditional knowledge is always contextual. That means a body of knowledge in a particular context is different from that of other context. So it's not fragmented and reductionist knowledge. So uh, it builds actually in the process of adaptation. So what the thinking is there, resilience. So resilience, all humans are actually resilient. They face different adversities, maybe economic, social, psychological, different forms of adversities they face in their life. So and they become resilient. They adapt the situations. So in the process of adaptations, they construct, they build knowledge. So what Bandana Shiva believes here, that knowledge is built through the process of adaptation in the living context of people. So then we can see this traditional knowledge from ethno-ecological perspective as well. So what Dr. Victor Toledo says here, these humans, or we can say here, local people, they interact in the surrounding environment where they live. They interact with the natural elements or natural things, and they construct knowledge, and they again use that particular knowledge in their day-to-day life, and they again interact, and continuously they keep on constructing and developing the body of knowledge and skills in their world of living. So that is actually local knowledge heritage, or we can say traditional knowledge heritage. So this kind of experiential knowledge has actually been ignored by these rigid and structured schooling systems in Nepal. So we can see from again, Victor Toledo says here three aspects of this traditional knowledge. One particular body of knowledge is the cosmos, and sometimes we say cosmovision. And that is actually the world views, beliefs, and values that we have constructed in our living world. So cosmovision. And the next is corpus. That is, corpus is the experiential knowledge. So in a particular community, an individual experiences the world there in his or her day-to-day interaction with the nature, experiential knowledge. So that is lived experiential knowledge. So we can see experience. There are actually two forms of experiences. So one is lived experience, and another is vicarious experience. So when an individual interacts with the events, interacts with the nature, if he or she gets hands-on experiences from the living world, and that is lived experience. But vicarious experience, they experience the world from shared processes. That means the people, they share knowledge in the family. The people, they share knowledge in the community. So they listen, and they share their own ideas as well. So the kind of communication that is there in the family and in community, and they share experience. So this corpus is a body of knowledge that may be shared experiences, vicarious experiences, or this may be lived experiences. So this is another body of knowledge that is that we have in our context as well. So the next is praxis. What Victor Toledo says, praxis. So praxis is actually long set of practices in the nature. So then these three domains, let's say aspects of knowledge, are interrelated to each other. When you experience long, then you can develop a kind of beliefs. So sometimes your beliefs and worldviews allow you to experience the world. So praxis supports to get this experiential knowledge, and praxis sometimes support you to build your particular beliefs in their particular context. So we have such lived experiential knowing, lived experiential knowledge, and lived experiential way of knowing. So these type of building knowledge and knowledge systems have actually been ignored by this modern school. So we see here the traditional knowledge heritage uh, are there in belief systems of shamanic acts in particular communities, and we have traditional healing practices, uh, and we have in some communities such as in Brahmin Kshetri communities, we have this reading religious texts and writing traditions as well. And we have this experiential work, and we have these traditional institutions and oral traditions as well. For example, in our Kirat community, we have this Mundum recitation. So in traditional institutions, we see in Gurung community, we have Rodi and Kala, and in Newar community, we have this Guti. So these are traditional institutions, and through which the learning occur there in such traditional institutions. So, so what Iman Singh Chemjong says here, Arti Upadesh. So we have in Nepali, Kuro Sunnu बुढाको के भन्ने एउटा चाहिँ हुन्छ नि यो चाहिँ सो अति उपदेश. So elders always educate youngers. So we have these folk songs, stories, and metaphors, proverbs, folklore, myths, and mythologies, and there are several ways of knowing and knowledge systems. And through songs, stories, metaphors, proverbs, and from folklores and these traditional knowledge are expressed actually. So then what I want to say here, then we have a kind of cultural gap. So one body of knowledge is there, which is traditional knowledge and skills, which are our culture. That is at one pole, one side. But on the other hand, we have our students, they are engaging in learning these modern ideas or universal values, universal knowledge, scientific knowledge, or Western knowledge and practices. So there is a cultural gap. So what Piaget also says, the students need to have prior knowledge for learning the other newer concepts and ideas. So this cultural gap is there, then how they can learn other newer Western ideas. So I don't mean to say that these Western ideas are useless or these should be neglected. I don't mean that. So we need to engage the students based on providing this foundation of our own knowledge systems. Then only they can learn the other newer ideas and skills. So you can see the cultural gap here. So what practices we have, what knowledge system, ways of knowing we have, and what other modernist way of knowing there. So then what we need to do then? So we need to integrate these traditional ways of traditional knowledge and ways of knowing for promoting these meaningful teaching learning activities. So then why to integrate them? Why we need to integrate? What is the rationale behind this? So one particular rationale is that this body of knowledge, traditional body of knowledge, is our property that has been marginalizing, and it has become difficult to survive this essential body of traditional knowledge and skills on the one hand. On the other hand, what constructivism suggests that the prior knowledge, that means students traditional knowledge, students actually are the custodians of this traditional knowledge or local knowledge. So they have these prior knowledge, and these prior knowledge of students should be used there for making them to understand or develop new concepts and newer ideas. So the kind of sequential learning, we need to have this kind of sequential learning, then that will be meaningful. Otherwise, they learn very abstract ideas in schools and which are less usable in their day-to-day life. So it will be difficult for them, it is difficult for them to conceptualize and form the concepts of newer ideas because of such cultural gap. So that is my argument here. And students often fail to comprehend what is taught in schools because of this irrelevancy. What they have learned in home culture or community culture, and they learn different ideas and practices in schools. If there is irrelevancy, or there is disconnection, or and then that creates difficulties for them to learn. That is because Piaget also says prerequisites for learning. So then we need to integrate, we need to combine these traditional knowledge and ways of knowing in school system as well. So then I often share this slide in other places also. So we need to have this Bangur view now. So Bangur view is here to see, to identify the individual needs of the students, their learning abilities, their needs, and their expectations. So we need to immerse in the learning context as teachers. So immersion, and to identify the students' need and interest, their abilities and their competencies. So then, how we then integrate the indigenous or traditional knowledge and knowing practices. So we can integrate the practices through these progressive-based pedagogies. So what John Dewey proposed this idea of experiential learning, that is learning by doing. So this progressivism or progressive based pedagogies or progressive based ways of knowing actually allow us to integrate these traditional knowledge and knowing practices. For example, if we engage the students in experiential learning practices or learning by doing practices, we can give them the hands-on projects, and we can engage them in experiments and activities focusing on this traditional knowledge in their real-world situations. So so then we can engage them in community to explore traditional ideas and community practices. So they can share such ideas in classroom setting. So that may be a way through which we can bring in this traditional knowledge, our own local knowledge in school teaching learning practices. So so this progressivism provides enough space to integrate this traditional knowledge and knowing practices. So then also we can see from constructivist lens. So constructivism also provides a space for integrating indigenous knowledge. So so what constructivism says here, learning occurs in socio-cultural context. That context may be in the family or in the community where they share common culture of particular community people. So if we engage students there in their own socio-cultural context, they learn there the traditional knowledge and skills. So and they can bring in the classroom. Similarly, teachers and students, they are again the custodians of this traditional knowledge. They can share their prior beliefs, they can share their experiences in the classroom, and they can share their worldviews as traditional knowledge. So the cosmos, what I already shared, the views of Victor Toledo, that cosmovision, what the students and teachers have, they can share in the classroom situation. Similarly, we need to allow them to interact and discuss about their culture and community knowledge and practices. So what constructivism, particularly the idea of Vygotsky, focuses on shared learning, communicating ideas, communicating knowledge and beliefs. So when students discuss, interact, and communicate their prior knowledge, their traditional knowledge, and that can support them to learn other newer ideas. So sometimes we can invite these knowledgeable community people. Sometimes you can invite village chieftains, let's say, or other people who knows about the culture, about the knowledge, or about these mythologies, folklore, and songs of the community. So traditional knowledge then again supports to fulfill the gap, what Vygotsky says, zone of proximal development, and that is actually the gap of known and gap between actual knowledge and potential knowledge to be achieved. So that is zone of proximal development. So scaffolding, that means continuous support to be provided to the students, can support to fulfill the zone of proximal development. So here uh, the teachers can actually fulfill that gap when they bring the ideas together in the classroom. So that supports as a form of scaffolding to the students. So we can then bring these other community chieftains, knowledgeable persons, maybe in a particular Tamang community, maybe we can bring Choho. Choho was actually community chieftain. Uh, uh, Nowadays also there are these practices. We can bring such individuals in the school or in the classroom setting. Now this so constructivist ideas also allow us to bring in the traditional knowledge in the classroom. So the other ideas here, what is the time, Dian sir? I think.
Sir, you have still time. You just go on. We're enjoying.
Okay. Then I think I'll finish within 10-15 minutes now, 10 minutes maximum. Okay, then transformative pedagogies. So these transformative pedagogies are actually the later advancement in educational value actually. So transformative, first we need to be clear on what is transformation. So in broader sense, we may conceptualize it from two ways. Let's say one is physical transformation and another is mind transformation. So physical transformation is something, the change in physical bodies. Let's say this let's say construction of infrastructures. So that may be a kind of transformation, but more of physical transformation. So here what I mean to say is transformation is mind transformation. That is the change in your viewpoints. So what Jack Mejiro says, change in frame of reference, change in your presupposition, change in your thoughts. So change in your viewpoints, your perspective. So how you look the world, how you see the world, that keep on changing over time. So that is actually the transformation. So we need to we change over the period of time. We change our deep-seated values, we change our pre-assumptions, and what Perry Bordeaux says, that is predisposition or habitus of people keep on changing over time. And that is also sometimes said these progressive subjectivities. So subjectivities uh, keep on shifting or evolving over time. So, so then the students here, when we use these transformative pedagogies in classroom setting, then we need to allow them to think and reflect, and we need to allow them to critique. We need to allow them to experience and compare and contrast the ideas from different sources. So when they start comparing and contrasting the ideas, then they can develop this critical self-awareness. So this developing critical self-awareness is important so that they can see the world from different perspective. So Jack Mizero says this critical self-awareness is developed when the students compare and contrast the older knowledge and newer knowledge. So when students start comparing their traditional knowledge and new scientific knowledge, then they can develop the kind of critical self-awareness. So we need to allow them to make meaning through critical self-reflection. We need to engage them in reflective practices. So then they can examine their deep-seated values, their assumptions, their traditional beliefs, their ways of thinking, their worldviews are examined by themselves when they start comparing and contrasting the older and newer ideas. So this is the way how this traditional knowledge can support to develop their critical self-awareness. So this is important actually. So then again, this traditional knowledge can be integrated, can be combined with our newer modes of teaching learning activities through the use of ICTs. What I see here, this native beliefs, knowledge, their worldviews can be shared through online conferencing, online sessions like this. We can share our beliefs and worldviews. So then we can bring in the learning process. So we can use pictures, metaphorical cartoons, and audio recording of elderly peoples in the community, and we can bring these stories and folklores and myths in the classroom through the use of ICTs, through recording. So video recording of the ceremonies, rituals, and cultures can also be brought in the classroom. So you can use multimedia, Facebook, Twitter, and also you can create a discussion forum and quiz in Moodle platform. So there are there are several ways through which we can bring in the traditional knowledge in our classroom setting. So now let me share these postmodern pedagogies. So postmodernism, you know that it's actually it evolved from language, from arts, and hence it believes on this epistemic pluralism. So epistemic pluralism is here. There are multiple ways of knowing. So individuals know from different ways. So there are no only one way of knowing. There are several ways of knowing. So it believes on more the knowing
अनि
through.
पासवर्ड चाहियो कि मलाई
Sure.
Uh, Dr. Yamphu, I interrupt you. Please, anyone has unmuted, please, if your microphone, please mute it. I would like to request you.
Deepa ji here.
Deepaji, you will be asking question later on. We will have half an hour's time for you. So please wait.
Okay, then may I go now? Fine.
Go on.
Okay. Okay. So I'm talking here about epistemic pluralism.
Okay.
So epistemic pluralism is the pluralistic ways of knowing. That means this postmodern pedagogy is actually focus on art-based knowing. So artistic way of knowing or art-based knowing using different logics and genres. So this traditional knowledge or indigenous knowledge, we can say, is expressed through poetry, drama, stories, proverbs, metaphors, jokes, songs, folklore, and other oral traditions. Also, it is expressed through dance, music, and dialogue, myths, and local sayings, cartoons, and drawings. So, we can bring in such different ways of knowing in the classroom situation. So we can students can craft their autobiography, and sometimes you can bring narrative of students and elderly people in classroom situations, and then uh, these actually represent the traditional knowledge. So there are several ways, several pedagogies through which we can embed these traditional ways of knowing and knowledge. So then I'm about at the end. So mixing together. So I focus on initially I said that I am actually in line of hybridization or in line of mixing together. That is strategic essentialist perspective. So, so we need to mix these Western knowledge and ways of knowing and traditional, our own traditional knowledge and ways of knowing. So that actually privileges the students to develop newer and coherent concepts. So that is actually inclusive practice when we integrate both local and global knowledge, and that can only promote meaningful learning. So building synergy is important, which is often said these local practices, local and global practices. So that only facilitates to learn meaningfully. So that is what Homi Baba also says, but he said in a cultural context, but I connect it here as the third space or hybrid space. That is the cross-mediate knowledge and knowing processes. So that what I said here, third space pedagogy, third space ways of knowing and educating. That is neither Western ways, Western knowledge and knowing, or our own indigenous ways of knowing. Rather, we need to create this third space pedagogy or third space, spacing the ways of knowing and educating. So that can only promote the justice between the West and East. So then this is the metaphoric way of metaphoric presentation of building synergy between local and global knowledge. So we have imported knowledge and knowing, practices of knowing, and also we have local knowledge and knowing. And we need to mix together and build hybrid knowledge and ways of knowing. So that is actually thought space. So third space is always supportive for us to promote meaningful learning and quality education in Nepal. Okay, this is just my argument. You can disagree on many aspects here. So this much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Yamphu. Amazing, I have seen here, I'm looking everything here, the comments you're getting, the feedback, everything, it's a wonderful. I don't have words to express also. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing these ideas. And from today I have made one rule, that is, anyone who wishes to ask the questions, please raise your hand. And first of all, Deepaji, you're asking for earlier, so I'm unmuting you, or you can unmute yourself. Please ask and then mute yourself later on. Deepa. Deepaji. I think she has left. She's not yet. Deepaji? Okay. Possibly Deepaji is not yet. She'll be connected later on. Anyone has any query to?
Yes, DNG. I'm writing question.
I think
Well
Guru
done,
sir.
well done, well done, Dr. Yamphu. Good to see you here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Kaji sir पनि हुनुहुँदो रहेछ.
I've been typing like, oh, what's happening? I've been typing.
Mm.
I've been typing like the way you elaborated like uniqueness of individual kind of knowledge and all in transformative learning, which is the most thing. And you bring the tradition to the classroom. You bring the home culture to the classroom.
Yeah.
Which is very, very significant, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So please, anyone has any query?
Yes, I have. I would just like to add, as Dr. Yamphu was presenting, then I remembered, the knowledge base that we had in two songs that I remember. One is almost dead. That is called Bhalaya, that we used to sing. Women used to sing in the marriage ceremony. And then other was this Wali that was sung during the this rice plantation. This Ropai. Now Balaya, I remember in my nephew's Bratabanda, when we tried to find out some, usually it was sung by women, grandmothers. Then there was no one who could sing in the Bratabanda. So we've lost it, and we have been actually swamped by the Western things. But the irony is that we are now using the Western knowledge to say this. So the medium now is English, and we are using this Western pattern of knowledge building, and at least we have woken up. And then this Corona pandemic actually has given a very good thrust that Eastern lifestyle, Eastern knowledge, Eastern way of living with the nature, in conjunction with the nature, has come to the fore. Maybe it's our responsibility to take it further and then gain back the kind of the great tradition that we had, which we used to fight with the diseases and then evils and anything. So that's what I just wanted to add to Dr. Yamphu's this great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gildi.
So DNG, I have typed my question. Could you please read out to
Yes,
it to Dr. Yamphu?
I'm going for it. Possibly Guna sir has.
This is somehow in line with Professor Gawali, but I would love to listen to Dr. Yamphu on my understanding.
Right. Okay, I'm trying to get it. Let me start with the Pushparaj Paudil's question: how to integrate traditional knowledge in our present classroom settings? Please outline some examples. This is what he's asking.
Okay. Yeah, Pushpa sir raised here very excellent question actually. So I already shared there are different pedagogical practices. These were actually imported from the West. Rather, these practices actually allow us to integrate our traditional knowledge and knowing. For example, what Pushpa sir asked me to give an example I think Professor Gewali also shared that the stories told by elderly women, and if she could bring in the classroom and to share her stories and her knowledge on a particular issue, then that could be very excellent for understanding other newer ideas. So I think there are several ways students can engage in the community practices, and they can bring in the reflective notes of their engagement there, and they can share in the classroom. So likewise, students can collect stories, they can collect mythologies, and they can collect other community practices, then they can bring in the classroom. So there are several ways to integrate traditional knowledge in the classroom. Yeah.
Okay, hope you answer you have been given the answer. Now, NP Bandari has asked the question: have scholars slash advocates have not developed a model curriculum for integration for the practices? This is what his question is.
Very excellent. This is also very excellent question. Yeah. Uh, we need to see different aspects here for integrating traditional knowledge. One level of one aspect is the development of curriculum. When developing curriculum, we need to think about the integration of traditional knowledge. That is one aspect. So particularly in Kathmandu University, we have different courses, and we are analyzing there the extent of indigenous concepts or traditional concepts and skills in curricula. So then we find there are several concepts in courses of KU. For example, one particular course is local cosmologies. It's one particular course in Kathmandu University that is taught in fourth semester of MSD, and there several ideas are mentioned there. For example, this local cosmology itself is the traditional knowledge. So, and other indigenous practices, other sustainable contribution of this indigenous knowledge in sustainable development. There are several concepts. So, at one particular level, we can integrate the traditional knowledge and ways of knowing in curriculum. And the next layer is pedagogical layer. In pedagogical layer, the teachers, what I already shared, the teachers and students should be aware on how to integrate this indigenous knowledge. So next is the assessment practices. We can provide them the assignments and tasks so that they can bring in this traditional knowledge. And particularly in Kathmandu University, even in Tribhuvan University, students are engaging in thesis writing, focusing on this traditional knowledge. And they engage in the practices and exploring the stories of people through narrative inquiry as well. So these are the ways through which we can embed this traditional knowledge in different layers. But we need to be aware and we need to think about this for promoting meaningful education. I think I addressed the
Yeah,
question.
thank you again. Guna sir, I think you need to ask yourself the question because I have changed the rule now. I'm not asked because yesterday one of the friends' question was left with Richard, and he was, so emotional later on. So I decided to allow the participants to ask the question.
Uh, all right. Actually, this is not in the form of question. How I have written is, I really like the concept of third space. That's fine. but still I see a paradox in how factor of the presentation, because how to decolonize pedagogies. Once again, we are talking about progressivism, Western, constructivism, Western, transformative pedagogy, Western, post-modern pedagogy, Western. All Western constructs are being used to talk about how we can integrate indigenous knowledge in our curriculum and pedagogy. So there I see a paradox. Couldn't we find certain pedagogical strategies employed or invented very creatively by the Easterners themselves, so that we could also give some space to talk about our pedagogy and curriculum? That was my intention in the question.
Thank you, Guna sir. This is very top level, I should say, very philosophical level of question. Very excellent, sir. So
Thank
here,
you, sir. Just my query, sir. I saw you, very brilliantly presenting. I'm really impressed, and you ended up with the concept of the third space. But I saw, a huge body of your argument was, exclusively based on these Western discourses. So that is where I felt, didn't we find something from our side to incorporate into it? That was my query, sir.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, now how I respond this question is here. The concept of decolonization and the concept of post-colonization, these are different concepts. There are some issues. These two broader thought systems actually marry at some points, but basically this what you said, decolonization actually is more of anti-colonialism. So decolonization actually demands our own actual pedagogical practices and strategies, that if we start claiming, if we start revitalizing or claiming our own pedagogical practices or ways of knowing in schools or anywhere, then that is the process of decolonization. So decolonization actually emerged from Latin American world. It is more radical than post-colonial thinking. So please, based on my understanding, this post-colonialism that talks about equity. So equity in the sense that promoting justice, to promote justice from justice between the West and East. So they talk about what third space is, what I talked about, third space, hybridization, and equity. These are actually the concept of post-colonialism. So major my argument was from post-colonialist perspective, not from decolonizing perspective. So first I gave you the title, gave a title to Dian sir about decolonization, and later I thought that it's difficult to deal here because we have no, what Guna sir said, we have no already set standard form of these pedagogical practices or ways of knowing. But what I think that we can argue here in this presentation, what I argued here, the third space that can be created by combining both Eastern and Western ideas and practices. That is just my argument.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Yamphu. I think
Thank
there
you.
are
Thank
again
you,
more.
sir. Thank you very much.
More questions are there. Possibly, yeah, the Chandani raised the hand. Even the Banu. Let me start with the Banu. Banu sir, please can you ask your question?
Thank you, Dr. Yamphu, for your wonderful presentation. I got enlightened with your marvelous ideas. And thank you, Dian sir, also for this invitation. Well, let me ask a question that you have mentioned our Eastern tradition, indigenous knowledge, and our culture, which are incredible. And at the same time, we have inherited, we have carried out some Western philosophies, theories, of course. Yeah, and it is the main time that we need to blend our Eastern cultural practices as well as human value education or the such norms and Western technological advancement. Yeah. So how could we implement specifically what sort of our values can we translate into classroom, and what aspects of Western would you like to translate? So could you please specifically give some example? And
Okay.
I will share my experience also after that. Please, Dr. Yamphu.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I already shared some of the ideas that you raised here. But one idea I would again like to highlight here, these practices or the hybridization of this Western and Eastern ways of knowing and knowledge is actually difficult task in our context. But that is actually because of this structure, what we have, the structures, educational structures. And what Anthony Giddens says, structure and agency, two entities. He talks about two entities. One shapes the other. So structure are here the structure, particularly educational structures. You can see the universities and schools in Nepal. These structures are actually materializing the Western power, and these have become the means for dominating our traditional culture and values. So we agency, the people as agency, the students and parents as agency, they are being unable to resist such structures, very powerful structures guided by Western worldviews. So there is contradiction. So we as academicians need to raise these questions so that the government can form very flexible type of policies, programs, and then manage resources for integrating such indigenous knowledge in classroom settings. So we need to have a particular setting in schools, so that makes flexible for integrating, for embedding traditional knowledge and skills in schools. So conflict of structure and agency, it has not been negotiating actually. So agency has not been able to shape the structures. So two-way influence remains always there. So structure dominates is dominating agency. Agency cannot agencies are not being able to reform the structures, educational structures. So that is the main problem here. I see that is I'm talking from Gideon's perspective. So we need to think about, we need to re-engineer the educating processes in Nepal. So that's all right.
Thank you, Dr. Timpu.
Thank you, Dr. Yamphu. I think Chandini, are you there? Last question we'll take, and if Govindapuri sir has question, please you can ask. And after that, our time is over here now. So please, Chandini, are you there? No. So anyone, please raise your hand. Govinda sir, Govindapuri sir, are you there?
Yes, DN sir, I am here.
Please
Uh,
put your question.
Actually, I do not have very big question to ask to to Dr. Yamphu. I'm really impressed by his presentation. He gave us a clear idea how we should integrate the traditional knowledge and then Western knowledge in our pedagogy. But my question, my query is, how do we integrate that hybridization of traditional or indigenous knowledge and then Western knowledge in our pedagogy or in our classroom, or who hybridize? Teachers or policymakers or curriculum designers, or who are responsible for creating that thought space? My question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanusar. This is also very genuine question.
I'm Govinda, sir.
There are actually layers of stakeholders. You know that primary stakeholder, secondary stakeholder, tertiary stakeholder, and there are layers of stakeholders for promoting this hybridized nature of pedagogies. So first and foremost, stakeholder or the responsible entity, let's say, is the government. So state has to see, has to recognize, has to respect our own value systems first, and then they need to develop policies in line of facilitating to embed traditional knowledge and knowing systems. And then curriculum makers are also equally responsible. We already discussed about these curriculum making practices. So again, if we go to these curriculum making practices, there are several ways. Curriculum makers need to analyze the context, situation, and they should be oriented philosophically, and they should be enforced by the results of particular analysis of the context and social setting. And by these ways, they need to develop curriculum. But here, we don't have such practices. We just form a small group of experts and we develop curriculum. So if we go to the actual practices of developing curriculum, we can then integrate the traditional knowledge in curriculum. So then teachers and administrators or other stakeholders, students are equally responsible for integrating these knowledge systems. So particularly how the system is developed in schools and universities. How I already shared about the structure, how structure shapes the practices and agencies of learners. That is important. So then we as academicians are also advocates. Let's advocate together and then for re-engineering our education system. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you
Dr.
so
Yamphu, we
much.
have more questions, many questions, but now I will say one thing, please, those who are not here, I wish to get permission from Dr. Yamphu to record it and put in my YouTube channel, and I will share to all later on. And for this, from the University of Dublin, Mr. Sagun Srestha sir has been helping me. Sagun sir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, he's there. So I'll put in my channel and I'll share to all the people. And now finally, I'm sorry to all, please, we don't have time limitation, but 1 minute for the Japan's example. Again, I'm requesting to Bhanu sir, who is also the bureaucrat, please.
Thank you, dear sir. Just, I don't like to take much time. Thank you, Dr. Yamphu, for your beautiful presentation. Just, I would like to support your presentation and argument that in Japan, actually, Japanese education system has incorporated their own Eastern tradition that is similar to our, Nepalese tradition. For example, human values like honesty, sincerity, respecting, and collaboration, teamwork, group work. So that's all about our Eastern tradition. And at the same time, they have borrowed some tradition, technological advancement from Germany and other Western and American countries. So Japan can be considered as a blend of Eastern and Western tradition. So
Okay.
here, my experiences in Japan, I have been as a student and as a parent of my child. So Japanese education system is based on almost more than half traditional system of Eastern and modern technological advancement. So your approach is quite marvelous. I appreciate. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dian sir. Just
Thank
that.
you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
This is
thank you
very
everyone for being here. Thank you, Dr. Yamphu, for such a the basket of knowledge. I could say the ocean of knowledge. This one and a different concept as well. The slide to everything. It was amazing, amazing. So no words. Thank you so much, Dr. Yamphu, and we'll be awarding with the certificate on behalf of the Scholars Association of Nepal soon electronically.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much. If possible, for the queries, we'll try to catch you again later as well,
Okay.
but it's depend upon your time. Sorry to
Thank
other friends whom answers I was not able to give here also. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll have a next session.
Sir,
Next
sir,
session.
Dian sir, when are
Once
we starting our next session?
right now, Shikha is present now. Shikha has just joined us,
So
so
the
we can
same
take.
link will work. Dian
Yes,
sir,
yes,
the same
same link
link
will work.
will work for new participants, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Yamphu, be here once because people are taking the photos and they're requesting me as well. Please, we want a photo with Dr. Yamphu. Yes. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
okay, please. So, friends, you can take now. 1 minute.
Uh, Thank you, Dian sir and Dr. Yamphu for your presentation.
Uh,
Sorry, I can't find the second session. I'm sorry. I have to
Okay.
attend
Okay.
another
Thank
one.
you, sir.
So thank you very much.
All right.
So see you next time.
okay.
Thank you.
See you, sir.
Okay. So, now wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Yamphu. And now we have a second presenter. I mean, the second speaker, who is the established story teller, I could say. She is my friend as well. She has been teaching in Ulan's school, and possibly more introduction will be given by my co-host, Mr. Min Prasad Dawadi. Over to you, Min Prasad, sir.
Thank you, Dian sir, for this opportunity. Once again, I would like to welcome all the intellectuals, scholars, and resource persons to this second session. The first session was really insightful and highly productive. I hope the second session will also be the same. The second session will be facilitated by Mrs. Sikha Gurung, who is an MPhil scholar, a senior English language arts teacher at Ulan's School, Lalitpur, visiting faculty at Kathmandu University. Similarly, Kathmandu University School of Education, creativity scholar at IATFL 2018, and a prominent storytelling teacher. Now, without any delay, I would like to invite Mrs. Sikha Gurung for her beautiful presentation. Let's enjoy her presentation. So over to you, Sikha ma'am there.
Shikha, are you there?
Namaskar,
Yes.
everyone. Namaskar.
Namaste.
Namaskar. Namaskar,
Namaskar.
madam. We are muted, so you may not hear. Okay, our
Okay, I will
namaste
show.
greetings.
Okay, namaste, namaste.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Wow, after that insightful presentation of our dear Yamphu sir, I really feel pressurized now. Anyway, ours is not
No pressure, no pressure.
the kind of, it's not the stereotypical presentation. It's more sharing. Okay, it's more enjoying, it's more talking together, having fun with storytelling. It's not like that proper slide wala presentation. So yes, let me see. Yes. Okay, before I start, I would like to request all my participants who are quite used to actually you are quite used to getting mute. But then I also like to ask you to please participate, because this is more of a participatory presentation, or let's say sharing. Let's say sharing only, let's not say training. So yes, please participate when the floor is open for you. Please raise your hands up if you want to say something. And in the beginning of the session, we are going to share our story. So at that time also, I want full participation. Is that okay to everyone? You can give a thumbs up in the reaction if you are okay, like this.
So I am viewing Ramdal sir's screen.
Okay, is somebody sharing the screen? If not, I'll be doing that.
Ramdal sir, can you go back, please? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello,
Sikhaji, I
everyone.
will take
Okay,
1 minute, Sikhaji.
it's okay. Yeah, go on.
Please, this is the house rule as well. Everybody mute your microphone, and please don't share your screens here. Thank you so much. Over to Sikhaji.
Thank you, Dian sir. Thank you so much. Okay, I think I'll share my screen before coming to the point. Please give me a minute. Can you see my slides? Can you see my slide, Dian sir? Can everybody see? Hello, everyone. Can you see my slides?
Yes, everyone.
Of course.
Okay, then.
Dian sir,
Where I
unless you
begin?
mute us, we cannot respond to her question. Please do consider it, okay?
All right.
Yeah, I mean, if we are all matured people, we can take turns to speak. We do not have to necessarily be muted. It happens with children more. Okay, so yes, the topic of my presentation, the sharing session, says a multicolored butterfly in ELT classrooms. I've given the metaphor of butterfly to storytelling because it indeed has many colors. It has many colors on its wings. The more you explore, the more you get, actually. That's what happened to me, actually. Yeah, my request to you all, participate when the floor is open to you. Okay, so I might ask any one of you to come and share and speak whenever wanted. So please do not hesitate. Please feel free. It's though it's formal kind of a setting, but let's do it informally, in a disciplined, informal manner. So next is, please sit with paper, pen, pencil. If you have color pencils, even better, because you see the topic says color, colored wings. And please stay mute.
Dear,
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that.
sorry, Sikha ma'am, sorry.
Excuse me, Sikha ma'am.
The screen is not visible. Dian sir, could you hear me?
Screen
Not
is
clear.
not visible. It's okay.
Means
Never mind. Never mind. That might be technical error. Never mind. I'll be doing it orally also. So please
the
don't worry
text
about
is
that.
not visible. The text is not visible. So
Okay, never mind. Yeah, that might be due to technical error. That's okay. Sometimes it'll be from your side. Sometimes it'll be from my side. So I'll be doing it orally also. Is that okay, sir?
Fine.
ma'am, fine.
Okay. I'll take that as an okay. Okay. So yes, I was telling, please keep your, if you have pen, pencil, because it is kind of a workshop also. I'm sharing what I've been doing with storytelling in my class since 2018, when I was first introduced to storytelling in my MPhil classes by our dear Dr. Lakshman sir. And after that, I actually got to participate in ITFL in a storytelling session. After that, I've been applying all the learnings in my classes. So I'll be sharing all the learnings, actually. This is more of a sharing from our one colleague to the other one. It's not that training in formal. I mean, let's not have some formalities. Okay, so if you have pen, pencil, a paper to write on, I'm ready. If you have different color pens also, that will work. Is that okay? Yes. Okay, let's move on then. I'll share my screen once more. Please tell me if it's not clear. Is it clear now, sir? Anybody can say? Anybody can reply to me, please?
I think the picture quality has been changed. It doesn't look like
Is it
the
clear now?
it doesn't look like the real HD one. I mean, I think, is it like the PowerPoint slide?
It's not clear. Letters are not visible.
Shika ma'am, your font seems different. I think it's not in Times New Roman or shortened thing, and it's quite different because it's like a cartoon type of font over is coming in our screens.
There may be some
If you
technical
can change,
problem.
no, there's not a technical
Yeah.
problem. If you can
No,
change
no
that,
font is.
It's not about the font. I think it's about the
Yes,
HD.
yes, Pratit.
yeah, if you can
Yes,
change, if you
that's
can
what.
make your size, if you can make your font size quite a bit increasing, is it okay with you? Then we
No,
can
the font
see that.
size are okay, Pratit.
Okay.
I think,
Microsoft
thank you for your suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Then please
Microsoft.
continue with your Barwal. Then yeah, we are listening to you very clearly.
Okay, okay then. Let's go with the flow.
So
Technology, internet connections are not in our hands. Let's cope with it. Okay. Yes, I had this few definitions, few sharings about storytelling. Okay. For me, I've written in my article, for me, storytelling is simply the vividness of my grandmother's love and care. So whenever somebody says storytelling, I think about my maternal grandmom, that automatically comes to my mind. So that's storytelling for me. And for our Goksu and Heathfield, they said that storytelling is the oldest of all the arts. It creates imaginary world and it develops the learner from inside out. Very good information. And Goksu and Heathfield again say, when students share, when this storytelling happens in school and the students get to share the stories from their culture, so they tend to respect each other's or one another's culture, so it kind of develops an inclusive school environment. Yeah, that was a little bit of theory from my side. So the outline of our session is, we'll first of all start with storytelling. I'll tell one story and I want the participants, one or two participants, to tell their stories. Very short, not more than 5 minutes, please. And then we'll go with your opinions. I'll request you to write something on the chat box. After that, I'll be sharing what I have been doing with storytelling in and outside my classroom. And finally, we'll do a storytelling activity. Is that okay? Is that okay with everyone?
Okay with everyone.
Okay. So first I'll start my story. It's a very short one. Two participants to share their story. Any story from anywhere around the world. It can be folktale from their own community. It can be a Newari folktale. Newari folktales are quite popular in Nepal. Any story will do. Okay, so think about it. Until in the meanwhile, I'll be sharing my story. So my story goes on like this. I'm sharing with you a Turkish legend. Okay, how many of you have heard of Nasruddin Hodja? Okay, Pratit has heard. Very good. Who else? Okay, Manuka. Yes, thank you, Manuka and Pratit. Yes, Nasruddin Hodja is a very common figure in Turkish stories, comics, jokes, and so on. Like we have Hum Jayega in Nepal or in Darjeeling. I've heard a lot of Hum Jayega stories when I was small in Darjeeling. Yes, so similarly, Nasruddin Hodja is that character in Turkey. So what happened was once Nasruddin Hodja got a job of an English teacher, like us. Okay, he got a job of an English teacher, and he had to, present a very good lesson to the students. So on the very day he went to the class, and when he entered the class, the students were quiet. They were listening to the teacher. They were waiting for the teacher, and he asked one question. So he said, "Good morning, students." The students replied, "Good morning, sir. do you know what we are going to learn today? Was the question. And the students replied, no, sir, we do not know what you're going to teach today. I mean, you are new to us, if we are not wrong. And said, well, Nasruddin said, if you do not know what you are going to learn, then what am I doing here? And then he went out of the class. So this action shocked the students. They were like, what? What did the new teacher just do? I mean, what does he mean? Okay, and they were surprised. Anyway, students are very exploratory. So they came together and discussed, okay, come together, come. And they said, when this teacher comes tomorrow, we are going to teach him a lesson. So when he asks the same question to us tomorrow, we are going to say no. Sorry, no, we are going to say yes. Yes, we know what you're going to teach us. Okay. So the next day, Nasruddin came in a very light mood and said good morning to everyone. The students replied good morning. And he again asked the same question. Okay, students, tell me, do you know what we are going to learn today? And the students replied, yes, sir, we know what you are going to learn today. Yes, sir. So again, Nasruddin said in a very light mood, well then, if you already know what you're going to learn today, then what am I doing here? And he again left the class. And this really bewildered the students. They were like, what's happening? What's going on? And now again, they made a plan, come together. And they made a small circle and said, okay, so when sir comes tomorrow, half of you are going to say yes and half of you are going to say no. Okay, so that was the plan. And the next day, the third day, Nasruddin came inside and asked, dear students, do you know what you're going to learn today? Half of them said, I mean, all of them said together, but half of the students said, yes, sir, we know. And half said, no, sir, we do not know. And Nasruddin was cool enough. He was as cool as ever. And he said, well then, if half of you already know and half of you do not know, so the half of you who already know can teach the half of you who do not know. And he left the class. I think you must laugh. Okay, so that was the end of the story. That was the end of my story. So Nasruddin is known for his witty stories. Okay, thank you, Govinda sir and Monuka ma'am. Okay, thank you, Gunaraj sir, Narinder sir. Okay, now it's your turn, participants. Let me not call this topic. Storytellers, come on. Who is next? Even D and Saw can participate.
Please raise your hand. Who is to do it?
Who wants to share the story?
I'm good at listening to a story, ma'am.
Okay, maybe I can go.
Yes, Samik shared, ma'am. Thank you. That's the
Okay,
spirit.
so,
Come on.
okay, so let me start. Okay, I want to tell a story about the blind man and the elephant. It's about teaching culture to the students. This is appropriate for the young learners. So let me start. Let me breathe once again. Okay, yeah. Long ago and far away, there lived 6 blind men. Although these men could not see, they learned about the world in many ways. They could hear the music of the flute with their ears. They could feel the softness of silk with their fingers. They could smell the scent of food cooking and taste its spicy flavor. Together, they could take care of their home and they were very happy. Then one day, the blind man heard some exciting news. The prince had received a new elephant at his palace. The blind man had heard of elephants, but they had never met one. They did not know what an elephant looked like. Let us go to the prince's palace, said one of the blind men. Then we can find out what the elephant is really like, said the other one. Off they went. It was a long walk to the palace. The blind men grew hot and thirsty, but they did not stop. They could not wait to touch the elephant. Finally, they reached the palace. A guard came to greet them. The blind man told him why they had come. Of course, you may touch the elephant, said the guard. I'm sure the prince will not mind. The guard led the 6 men to the animal which stood quietly in the garden. The first blind man touched the elephant's eye. It is strong and wide, he thought. I think an elephant is like a wall. The second blind man touched the elephant's long round trunk. Oh, it is just like a snake, he decided. The third man grabbed the elephant's smooth ivory tusk. Why an elephant is as sharp as a spear? The fourth man held the elephant's leg. He thought it was as round and firm as a tree. The fifth blind man held the elephant's ear. The ear was very, very big. The elephant flapped it gently. The fifth man laughed. Oh, it's like a fan. The sixth man touched the animal's long, thin tail. The elephant is like a rope. Oh, elephant is like a rope, he thought. By now, it was midday. The sun burned hot in the sky. The guard took the sixth man over to the tall, shady tree. Why don't you rest here? He said. I will bring you some water. While they waited, the six blind men talked about the elephant. No one told me that elephant is like a wall, said the first man. A wall? Said the second man. Oh no, it's like a snake, said the third one. An elephant is clearly like a spear. What? Said the fourth man. An elephant is like a tree. Hey? The fifth man started to shout. A wall, a snake, a spear, a tree. You are all wrong. An elephant is like a fan. No, it is like a rope, yelled the sixth man. The sound of an angry voice filled the garden. It was the sound of the six blind men fighting about the elephant. A wall, a snake, a spear, a tree, a fan, a rope. All the noise woke the prince. He had been taking his midday nap. Quiet, he called. I'm trying to sleep. We're sorry, said the first blind man, but we cannot agree on what an elephant is like. We each trust the same animal, but to each of us, the animal is completely different. The prince spoke gently. The elephant is a very large animal. Its side is like a wall, its trunk is like a snake, its tusks are like spears, its legs are like trees, its ears are like fans, and its tail is like a rope. So you are all right, but you are all wrong too. For each of you touched only one part of the animal. To know what an elephant is really like, you must put all those parts together. The blind men thought about the prince's words. They realized that he was very wise. I'll tell you something else about the elephant, said the prince. It is very good to ride on. Now you will ride on it all the way home. So they did. And they all agreed that was the best part of all. So I use this book for like teaching culture because each one of us has a different culture and we view from our own lens. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice, Samiksha ma'am. Very nice. I would love you if I were your student.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Who's the next volunteer? Volunteer storyteller? Anybody, please? Manda, would you like to share? Would you like to tell us a story?
I don't have anything right now to share. Nothing in my mind.
Okay, is there anybody else? Come on, teachers. We all are storytellers.
Gunnar
We
sir
can
seems to
make
be raising
stories
his
just
hand.
like that.
Gunnar sir, you raised your hand.
No, he said he's a good listener. He
Manda,
said he's a good
Manda,
listener.
Manda ma'am, actually Samiksha ma'am had rightly caught you. You know, why are you skipping? I think you can share with us a very wonderful story. Please go ahead. I have already surrendered to Sikha ma'am.
Okay, then because we have very limited time, you can think over in the middle of the session. If you remember any story, we can share. And it doesn't have to be chronologically. It can come any moment. Come on, storytelling can pop out.
Wait.
Yes, Jian, sir, were you saying
Baral is
something?
there. Ekata Baral is there.
Oh, because I cannot see, because I could not see all the participants in my screen, so maybe I have not seen her. Ekta ma'am, where is she? Where are you, Ekta ma'am? Please unmute yourself and let us see you.
She raised her hand, I think.
Yeah, I think she said to say, okay, fine, good.
Right.
That might also be the communication.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, yes, let's, without much ado now, because we have lot of activities in line. Uh, I'll share my screen once more. Yeah, we are done with the storytelling. Now, my question to you all is, what language and other skills can our students learn through storytelling? Please write down in your chat box. What language and other skills can our students learn through storytelling? That is my question. Yes, please write down in your chat box and we'll see to it that we can share. Creativity, Manuka says creativity, thank you. Kim Bhattasa says critical thinking skills, yes, definitely. Please, let's do it faster. Communication, Keshav Prasadji. Role play, imagination, Vishnu Karki. Listening, speaking skills, of course, I do that a lot. Imagination once more. Come on, 2 more minutes now. Come on, teachers. Moral, yes, of course, we can tell them do good and bad of doing things. Art and playing with colors, obviously, very nice. Problem solving skill, yes. Confidence in language use, convincing to people. Again, once more, creativity, Vatsa, but GSB. Yes, is that all? Imagination, expression, yes, I was waiting for that. Grammar, 4 C's, communication, creativity, critical thinking, and confidence, digitalizations and animations, yes. Fluency, gap filling, critical thinking, verbal proficiency, fluency again. Oh my God, so many. Relaxation, yes. Relaxation. Vishnu Karki, well done. Okay, thank you for being so prompt. Yes, what is that V culture? Is it a mistyping? Okay, entertainment, holding attention, culture, virtual culture, yes, during current time, virtual culture. Okay, we'll move on to the next section now. Thank you for being such prompt. Motivation, one more. Motivation, yes. Okay, let me share my screen once more because I want to see your faces. I keep on doing this. Yes. Okay, storytelling in and outside my classroom. These are few activities that I do in my school with my students. I've been doing since 2018, end of 2018 actually, when I was pretty confident that I can apply whatever I've learned from all the explorations from conferences and trainings. Yes, I do annual storytelling fest for listening and speaking skill enhancement. And this is the link actually of my article recently where I've written all the steps of organizing a storytelling festival. But apart from this, if you want my help, I can always come to you or I can always help you virtually. And then what I do is post storytelling fest activity. So my activity is always divided into 3 parts, pre, during, and post. Okay, so post storytelling activities cover up activities like audio recording. The students tell the stories to themselves. They audio record, they say, and they transcribe, and they send it to me for publishing. So wherever I can reach out, I send their stories, and some of the student stories have been published also in the international platform. Still, we also do it in the national as well. And we do storytelling workshop. This storytelling annual fest, I do it in the month of October, and storytelling workshop, I do it in the beginning of the session because I want students to come and relax and get used to my teaching. So I do this in the beginning of the session to welcome them. And we have drawing comprehension from a story. So we listen to a story, somebody tells a story in a class, and then we kind of create pictures in our minds, and then we draw the scenes or the characters, the setting, whatever comes to our mind. And recently, I did a story quiz also with my students online when online classes started. It really worked out. And story audio for listening test. Yes, these days, after I was introduced to Miss Jane Blake, the queen of storytelling, by our dear Lakshman sir, in the year 2016. Since then, I've been using her audio story that is available on YouTube free of cost. So I use that, I download it, I keep it, and instead of all other regular listening audios, I use this. And then the students, they learn the expressions from Jen Blake also, and then they do the activity also. So it's killing two stones with one, no, killing two birds with one stone, sorry. Okay, yes. So for storytelling session, if you want to know in detail, then let me stop sharing now. I think I'll say this. Okay, so about storytelling session, what I do is first I orient student, what are my expectations, and I tell them to register their names. I tell them the time limit of the stories. We can have only 5 to 10 minutes story, not more than that, and we can have only 15 storytellers. And I also decide and invite the guest speakers. I had Lakshman sir on the first year, and then after that Ram Babu Subedi ji. So this is the second year I've been doing it. And third year, maybe one of you will be my guest. You'll be welcome. And yes, after that, I decide on the venue. It has to be a flat room, because when I saw it in IDFL, it was like that. But then I have a little bit modified in Nepali context. I've titled the event as Nepali folktale storytelling session, so that students come up with their ethnic stories, their cultural stories, not with other stories. So some students come with Newari, some come with Gurung, Rai, Limbu, I mean, whatever ethnicities we have. And then I mean, we have a flat thing, and then we decorate the room, where we give a Nepali touch. We use dokos, madal, and then because it's October, so we have a lot of सयपत्री फुलहरू पनि हुन्छ हामीसँग हैन. सयपत्री फुलहरूको गमलाहरूले सजाउने, अनि त्यसको बत्ती सत्ती बाल्दिने, we have lights. I'll show you the pictures after some time. So we do that, and then on the main day we also decide some MCs. Okay, so MCs, they host the program, they invite the guest speakers, they invite the speakers, they end the program. Yeah, if I've forgotten anything, I'll tell later. Okay, after that, yeah, and we also use microphones, but then some people do not like to use microphones. They like to keep it natural. So if their voice is low, then only we use microphone. The lighting, the lighting of the room is quite cozy. We try to give a Nepali katha bhanne khalko vatavaran dinulai चाहिँ we do that, and then students, they work. It's actually a 1 month long activity before the actual event happens. Yeah, we do the registration times, folk tales, or I also spare some time to listen to stories of the students before they actually perform, so that I can tell them, I can advise them. And then after the storytelling, we do some post storytelling activities also. Yeah, these are the pictures. This first picture is the recent one to storytelling on 2019. And this is Srija. She's telling her, we actually, I forgot to tell you that also. We actually integrate Nepali and English curriculum together, so that because English and Nepali subjects, both of them share the common skills, 4 skills of language, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So we integrate the curriculum, and we have half of the storytellers telling in Nepali, half of the storytellers telling in English. Yeah, the third picture is the students, preparing the decorations. And these all have been done by students. Actually, the idea is also theirs. They take the initiative. They really have fun. Yes, these are some of the decorations. This is Safal is telling the story. We have Monuka also there, Lakshman sir also. This was our first storytelling event in the year 2018, October. And these 2 girls have decided to use some props for telling their story. Other people chose to tell the story just like that, but then they thought they could do with puppetry kind of. Yes. And these are the activities that I do with, where is that? Yes, drawing comprehension from a story. Yes, this is the picture. These are the pictures of that activity. Yes, so we were doing the old man and the sea. I was telling the story to the students. Students were telling the stories to us. This happened in our optional class. We have very less number of students. We were sharing the stories, and after the story, I told them to close their eyes and then think of a moment of from the story and draw and explain it to us again. So this was kind of comprehending the story in the form of drawing. Okay, so this girl has drawn the picture of the old man, the way she envisions him. And we have this guy, you know, the small boy helping the old man. And here Chongi has the man sleeping and dreaming of the sea tomorrow, the bright day. Lavanya has the boy and the old man drinking beer and having fun, because the boy is the only companion that the man has. So this was the exercise that we did after the storytelling. And this activity I'm going to try today in the class. I've been trying in many workshops. I've learned this activity from our transformative education conference that KU holds every 2 years. Yes, 2 years. So yeah, I learned from Elizabeth Taylor, and then after that I've been applying in my class as a regular activity. So after the scribbling activity, the students come up with beautiful stories, their own original piece. So let me please listen to this story. I have a video actually.
Today we're going to be telling the story behind Koto Dada.
Is the audio clear to everyone? DN sir?
Yes, everyone is listening. Yes.
The video, is it clear? Video?
Yes, video clear, pics clear.
Okay, thank you. So these are two of my students sharing story. Please listen to them.
So let's get started. Once upon a time, there lived a pair of serpents in a pond called Taudaha. They were the king and queen of serpents. The king was known as Karkotaka. One day, the queen fell ill. The king was very anxious because of that. He had heard that an experienced physician lived in Bhaktapur, so immediately he rushed to find the physician Japu Vaidya. Karkotaka visited him and said, "Japu Vaidya, मेरो श्रीमती अहिले साह्रै नै बिरामी छिन्। कृपया तपाईँ उहाँको उपचार गरिदिनुहोला। त्यसको सट्टामा म तपाईलाई धेरै धन र सम्पत्ति दिन्छु." Japu Vaidya nodded his head and agreed to cure the queen. "म अवश्य नै महारानीको उपचार गरिदिन्छु," he replied. As soon as Karkotaka and Japu Vaidya reached the pond, Karkotaka lifted Japu Vaidya and plunged into the pool. As they went deeper and deeper inside the marine world, Japu Vaidya found himself in front of a marvelous gold palace. Inside, the queen was lying in deep pain. With no time to spare, Japu Vaidya started his work. He prepared a yellow balm, which he applied to the queen's eyes. Immediately after applying the balm, the queen started feeling better.
Karkotaka was very happy. He was overjoyed that his queen had recovered. He presented Japu Vaidya with many valuable things. Among them, there was a black velvet poto similar to this one over here, decorated with different types of gleaming jewels. Japu Vaidya was very fond of the poto. He would wear it almost every day. One day, a ghost saw the poto and liked it. He wished to own the poto, so he followed Japu Vaidya wherever he went. One afternoon, the Vaidya was busy working in his field. Since it was hot, he had left his poto aside with his other belongings beside the field. As always, the ghost had followed him. It came stealthily, took the poto and ran away. Japu Vaidya ran after the ghost. He ran and he ran and he ran, but could not catch him. It was summer, the time when the people of Patan pulled the chariot of Lord Matsyendranath every year. When the chariot arrived at Jalaka grounds, people, ghosts, and spirits visit to pay reverence to Matsyendranath. So the Japu thought, This would be the perfect moment to get hold of the ghost who had stolen his photo. The ghost would certainly come.
He was right. The ghost was there in the crowd. Suddenly, the ghost disappeared. After a lot of running, Japu Vaidya finally caught the ghost. "Mero photo malai deo," he shouted. But the ghost said, "Nai, ma dinna," and a quarrel broke out. King Gunakamadeva had also visited the fair to worship Lord Machendranath. His courtiers arrested Japu Vaidya and the ghost and took them to the king's Japu Vaidya.
Can't you guys do this all night? Eyes Stop watching.
Okay, I think it's too long. Did you like the story so far? Anybody can reply? Okay, Pratik, thank you. Manda. Okay, so that was the storytelling activity that our students, one of the clips, you can find a lot in YouTube. There are many more interesting ones. There's one more activity after the storytelling. I tell the students to audio record themselves, tell the story to themselves, audio record it, and transcribe it again, and then again send it to me. So that also develops their listening skill abilities, their writing skill, their critical thinking skills, and so on. Okay, so yes, we have the audio. I have the sample of the audio here.
Today I'm going to tell you a story.
Is it audible, Diansa?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. It's only an audio.
About the shepherd and the sheep. This story is very popular in Nepal. It is mostly used as an example to teach kids that it is not good to lie. This story has been passed on from generation to generation. I've always heard this story from my parents and my teachers. My teachers have used this story a lot to teach us lessons about lying. The story is about a boy who was a shepherd. He was a very lazy shepherd. When he got on top of the mountain, he was very bored, so he screamed, "There's a wolf here! Help! Help!" When the farmer of the village got there, they saw no wolf, and the boy was just sitting there. This happened for a second time, and the farmers believed him again. This time, the farmers warned him that nobody was going to believe him even if he was telling the truth now. This kept happening for days and days. One day, when the boy was herding his sheep, he saw...
What happened? Okay, so that was the audio recording of my story, of Upasna's story. So enjoying so far, my dear storytelling teachers?
Enjoying.
Enjoying. Okay, I hope I'm not... Yes, Manda, thank you. Keshavji, thank you. Gunaraj sir. Okay, now I have another thing to share. Yes, so why storytelling? Your question might be, you might be asking, why do you need storytelling? What does storytelling do in your class, English language class, or Nepali classes? So I have a couple of answers to that question. So because it's the oldest of all arts, it's an effective educational tool. It can really make difference. And it's really different, it's refreshingly different from the usual text-based approach. It's art-based in my research terms. And it's a very natural way to connect with children because they come up with their stories from their countries. And in my context, I have a couple of students who come from Korea. So they bring along the Korean stories and we really like to hear And the interesting part is that we have from north as well as south, I guess one of them, yes, but I don't know how did they manage to come. However, so yes, they come and share, and we really feel surprised to hear their culture through their stories. And storytelling kind of develops the learners speaking skills, expression skills, as the participants shared in the chat box few moments ago. And in Hitfield and Goksu's article, I've read that storytelling can really add to the inclusive environment of the classroom. It can really respect people, respect students from every background, every culture. And then they learn from one another also. It's a spontaneous, just like I told you to share the story spontaneously. You can try that sometimes in the classroom when the students are feeling low. That happens during the end of the day. Usually they are very much bored, and that time the teacher wants to refresh them. So storytelling can be a very good tool. So spontaneous contribution, just tell them to come in front or sit down in their place and share story, or you can share the story. And yes, it unleashes their creativity and the desire to discover. Storytelling means delving into the imaginary world, or sometimes creating the world of your own. So yeah, it can help a lot. So it also helps, when we did storytelling sessions, when we did storytelling festival, I usually observe the students really taking care of everything. They take the ownership of everything, and they try to when we discuss of placing the flower pots, they always ask me if it obstructs anybody's way, if somebody can fall down. So it adds to the the considerate behavior of the students. They really feel that everyone should be safe. And also it's not only physical, it's also mental safety. And because students listen to each other, they kind of develop respect, so that also ensures the safe learning environment of the class. And it's transfer of knowledge. Yes, when I was told the story from my grandmother, I transferred it to my mom transferred it to me, and then I transferred it to my children, and my children will transfer it to their children. So it's a transfer. It becomes the heritage eventually. Yes, exercising the imagination. I'll do that in the coming up activity. I hope we have time. Oh yes. Yes, fun and lively participatory learning environment. Vocabulary. If you are actually thinking about the pure language skills, then you can talk about structures, vocabulary, the sequence, the plot of the story. You can teach story through storytelling actually, rather than going into the class and writing on the board. Okay, the plot of the story starts with an exposition, then goes to the rising action, and then when the rising action hits the very peak of the moment and it becomes climax, eventually things get sorted out and it comes to falling action. So rather than giving that verbal or oral definition to it, you can actually make them feel all these parts of the story. Yes, the rhythm, intonation, pronunciation of language, anything. Yeah, and then children actually, they get to know what their abilities actually. They learn to know where they stand in the speaking skill arena. And there are many. Public speaking, teaching expressions, gestures. I'll show you Jane Blake's story, and you can see how she uses gestures, how she uses sound to her stories. Okay, you can explore a lot. Some of the effective creative tasks to follow these activities I've taken from the Handbook of Storytelling, which British Council has had published in its Facebook site. If you want it, I can share it to you afterwards. There are a lot of activities you can do: mental imagery, freeze, improvise, role play, as I think one of the participants told us. Poem, song or message, artwork, movement or dance, trailer, write a trailer, make a trailer to the story, make a poster, suggest a fantasy ending. Just end the story in the middle and tell the students to continue. Design a comic, audio record, transcribe and publish. That's my addition, the last point. Okay, so we are here to the storytelling activity. Are we asleep? I hope not. I hope not. I hope I was not singing a lullaby.
Thank you, Srikaji. Wonderful session.
Uh, in fact,
Okay. So yes, Dian sir, we do not have time, or
no,
do we?
okay, we have time. Actually, I requested maximum teachers to join us. I requested let me say nearly 120 teachers. And earlier we had the more we don't have more capacity here to adjust these all. That's why it happened. Anyway, wonderful. This one, please. Questions are there? Someone is asking to share the link also and others. Yes.
Yes, I will do that. Please
Okay,
write to
please.
me. I'll give the email address quickly. Please write to me. I'll send you the resources. SHIKHA. I'll write down that in the chat box, I guess. Yeah, that's even faster. Yes, I'm writing down. I think I'll give my schools. shikha@ulens.du.np. Yes, that's my email. If you want the handbook of storytelling, if you want the link of my article, it's not an advertisement. It's a disclaimer. It's sharing actually. There I've written all the steps of organizing a storytelling session. If you want me, I mean, I can always come. I can always help. Yes, I think my email address is there. Now we have the activity. Yes. So everybody ready with the paper? Vishnu sir, I think you know the activity.
Okay, okay. Bring, bring.
This activity I've done in Hetauda also, but that was in lot of chaotic environment.
Yes, it's scribble
Yeah,
writing.
but yes, scribble to storytelling, but everybody has to participate and at least one story should be created.
Okay.
Teaser जस्तै भएको. Okay, so first task teachers. Oh, no, storytellers. First task storytellers on a paper, on a blank paper. Please scribble your heart out. And the scribbling should not done be in a uniform pattern. Do it randomly. Randomly. Yeah, come on. Are we doing? Yeah, I can see Gita doing. Come on. Chito कसको scribble खतरनाक हुन्छ. And there should not be a pattern. There should not be pattern. Come on. Rama ma'am, are you doing? I cannot see people. Could you show me your lovely faces? Could you switch on your videos? I want to see your handsome and beautiful faces. Yeah. Come on. Yes, I'm done. That should take not more than 1 minute, please. Okay, if you are doing this in your class, if you are trying in your class, then this activity will take 3 classes, 3 days. So first, just do the thing I'm doing, and I'll tell you which part can be done in the second day. Okay, so this is the first day part. But here I'm squeezing those 3 days and putting it in a few minutes. So please cooperate. Yes, Vishnuji, I can see it. Yes, if you have done that, if you have another color pen or any other color, if you do not have, but for the students, you have to keep things ready. Okay, so 1 pencil, 1 paper, 3 color pen for your students, but because you are teachers, so I mean, use your own resources. Yes. And now from the scribble, use the imagination skill to find the shapes of 3 animals. 3 animals that you see in your scribble. 3 animals. It does not have to be perfect shape. It can be just the outline.
One is always there.
It's all one is what is there, Manda?
Snake.
Yes, that's very common to my students also. Okay, so three animals shape la outline garnu ani arko page ma चाहिँ list them down. Like Manda saw a snake there. What did you see? What did others see? Come on. म त्यहाँ हामी फेस टु फेस भएको भए वरिपरि घुमेर हेर्थ्यो होला, तर अहिले अब मिल्दैन, के गर्नु. Narendra ji, are you speaking? Narendra sir? Geeta, what did you find? What animal shape did you find?
I found monkey.
Okay. Ramaji? Oh, you
Hello?
found a monkey. Oh my God. Okay. A snake, monkey. Ramaji, what did you find? गरिरहनु भएको छ कि छैन?
कहाँ छ म्याम?
हजुर के भेट्नु भयो त म्याम तपाईले? हजुर? I cannot hear you, sorry. ए. So what are
पशुपतिकै मङ्की पाए जस्तो छ गीतले त.
Okay, so one snake, one monkey, one last please.
I got one earthworm.
One monkey.
Earthworm.
One snake, and what else?
Earthworm.
Last one, Vishnuji, what did you find? Or
Butterfly.
Sir, at the back. She found an earthworm. Okay, good. Butterfly. Who found butterfly? Who found butterfly?
Mine butterfly.
Umesh sir or Vishnu sir?
Actually, I found panda and Vishnuji is saying butterfly.
Okay. Anyway, so monkey, I'll write down the names. Monkey, snake. But this one in your class, the students should be doing it. Okay, students should be finding and writing down and listing the names of the animals. Okay, next task is with another color pen. The task is to find 3 different mathematical shapes. Mathematical shapes. Mathematical shapes, please.
Okay, ma'am.
So, yes, what?
Circle.
Circle, okay, circle. Very good.
Triangle. Square, ma'am.
Triangle. Okay, square.
Oval. Oval also.
Oval. No, I was talking about shapes. Anyway, it's okay. A plus sign. You found a plus sign. That also adds to
multiply.
The list.
I was about to say.
Okay. Okay. If you have found, now the last task is find 3 any shapes of the world. Any shapes. Mutuko shape. Sarako shape. Anything. Anything you see. Heart shape. You are quite an emotional person, Ola. Okay, heart shape. You found a heart shape. Ramaji, thank you. Who else? Prateek, what did you find? Prateek, show us your face.
Eyes.
What did you find? Come on.
I did not find
Govinda Nirola ji, Govinda Puri ji.
I'm just listening to you, Shikha, because I already used those techniques in my multi-language,
Oh, wonderful then. Okay then.
So
okay,
I'm just listening others. So I just already wrote about, okay, we worked in 2017, 18 and 19. And from 2020, I just left my school and it was so good, not in English language course, for Spanish language also. It was so proficient for while I was teaching. And thanks to
thumbs up.
Okay, Shikhati, I could see W in my scribble, so can I also take it?
Oh, yes, why not, Geeta? Why not? W, okay. Any other? Mandira ji,